Peace, 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 my people. I'm going to give it a few minutes and I'm going to ramble for a little while just so that the people can tune in. I don't want anybody to miss anything. Welcome to my informational video. So, as I said before, I'm moving into the esoteric. And the moment I made that decision, a new devil popped up. At every level, there's a new devil. I just told y'all about that on my IG. I'm going to ask everyone to open your minds, go get your popcorn, go get your snack, your veggies, go get your drink, whatever that imbibement or libation is, and don't forget to pour a little to your ancestors. I gotta say, it has been an interesting couple of days. Got a lot of content that I have stored up for you guys. I apologize for not bringing third part to the major TV's um, ancestral knowledge, but you guys saw the video. Go and look at it. It is powerful, powerful information. I'm not going to do that third part. There's some reason why I'm not supposed to. The ancestors allowed uh, the powers that be to give me a lot of opposition to posting that third part. So I'm not going to do it. Listen, I know how to roll with the punches. I don't get emotional, and I'm learning to temper myself. And so, thank you for those of you who continue to tune in, who want to learn what your rights are. I'm going to talk about your human rights a little bit, but it's going to be in a different context. Thanks for joining me. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my page and hit the all notifications bell. I'm going to need you to do that. I want that done. So give it to me. I'm going to let you see a very, very awesome video that I was watching. This brother has so much information. And if, in fact, you are interested in knowing who you are, there are so many people who are discovering the lies that have been told. All right, this is from the brother. What is his brother's name? Kurimio Ehau. He is an indigenous American, and he got facts, statements, and receipts for you. And here we go.
My boys ain't all that, so, my reading, my accent. So, shout out to you guys for sticking around and listening to me. All right, so we continue, right? We continue. And we're in the Library of Congress right now. This is an old newspaper, the New Orleans Daily Democrat. All right, from 1877. All right. And zoomed into the article. Part of the page here says, our people, where they came from originally, the source of the population of Louisiana. All right, Louisiana. Who were our forefathers? Not the far distant apes and jellyfish to whom Darwin traces us. Ooh, big one. But those more immediate ancestors that converted Louisiana from savagery and wildness to its present state, to whom we owe its peculiar customs and habits, and not least of all ourselves. Much of our history of the past can be explained, much of our future prophesied, if we but know these ancestors. All right, so that's deep. This article.
All right, that's where I stopped before in the other video that I was doing before my microphone was shut off. I don't know if it was, well, I do know it was shut off. My microphone was somehow shut off. And it's weird because all the videos were playing, but where I was speaking, it wasn't. And I was trying to figure out what happened. I tested the microphone, and sure enough, someone had remotely, I guess, shut off my microphone. They did not want me speaking. Well, I guess things happened. A glitch in the system, as your boy say, don't glitch in the system. He said something, if we only but know these ancestors. That's powerful. Our future, much of our future prophesied, if but we know, if but know these ancestors. Just as one can map out the character and disposition, the traits and habits, the whole future of a child, if we know his parents and their dispositions. Listen, let me explain something to you. Part of, and this is the only part I'm really going to discuss human rights, I think, but in the International Covenant on Economic and Cultural Rights, you look this up, it's international law. Uh, to remove a person's culture from them is a violation of their human rights. To make them speak a different language, to separate them from their children, to do the things that have been done to indigenous and melanated people is a violation of law. However, no one's going to help us if we don't help ourselves. Everyone around is going to think we are okay with it. Uh, Getting in touch with your ancestors is not witchcraft, or it's not like scary. Getting in touch with your ancestors, every other group does it. Uh, so, Black America, you better get in touch with your ancestors.
Really deep. You can know your past, you can know your future, you can prophesize what may, because if you know who you are, if you know your ancestors, just as one can map out the character and disposition, the traits and habits, all right? Traits and habits, the culture, right?
Culture.
The whole future of a child, if we know his parents and their dispositions. The early origin of people is generally obscured, and with reason, since it is almost always obscure, base, often dishonorable. Dishonorable. This is a newspaper telling you straight up. They lie about history. The nobility of England are proud to trace their descent from a gang of robber chieftains. The ancestors of the hill people of
the robber barons, the robber chieftains. They had their own chieftains. He is telling you right here, it's written in the newspapers of the Library of Congress that the early, these are them talking about themselves. The nobility of England are proud to trace their descent from a gang of robber chieftains, these very horrible people.
Georgia were rescued from the London debtors' prisons. All right, remember the convicts and indented servant?
The ancestors of the hill people of Georgia, of what's that other one? West Virginia, the hill people. Y'all know about them hill people. They call them hillbillies. They were rescued from the London debtors' prisons. They were prisoners.
All right, this is real history. While Australia owes its first society and earliest patriots to ex-convicts and tickets of leave men, just like in the American
Same. This is who rules us.
So likewise, there are several stories of the first people of Louisiana, particularly of its first ladies, that the early colonists would gladly have covered up and hidden if they could have done so.
Gladly. Y'all didn't hear that. Did y'all hear that?
The original masculine portion
of
the population was well enough. It was for the most part honest but adventurous Canadian voyagers and coureur de bois. All right, who is these Canadian people? There's prisons. Remember the convicts and indented servants? All right, this is real history. While Australia owes its first society and earliest patriots to ex-convicts and tickets of leave men, just like in the American colony. So likewise, there are several stories of the first people of Louisiana, particularly of its first ladies, that the early colonists would gladly have covered up and hidden if they could have done so.
Stop. Melanated people are doing everything they can to emulate, to culturally appropriate on purpose these ladies, of which the early colonists would have gladly covered up and hidden if they could have done so. They were not proud of these ladies at all. They didn't like them at all. And there was a reason for it, not just because they didn't look good to them. You've got to see past what's been taught to you in European, Western pedagogy. Even in this newspaper, they had to be subtle in some of the things they said. But not all of them. They just told the truth at that point because they didn't realize that this truth would come back to haunt them later on. And it's in the Library of Congress. Now, the French.
The original masculine portion of the population was well enough. It was for the most part honest but adventurous Canadian voyagers and coureur de bois. All right, who's these Canadian people settling in a lot of them were Acadians, people from Quebec, Huguenots, and coureur de bois, right? The fur traders, the slave traders.
Who are the Huguenots? There's movies about the Huguenots. They're all depicted as Europeans, but the original French who actually came over here to actually help found America were not European looking. They were the Moors, the Huguenots. They assisted in the enslavement of our people. He's going to divulge some more information here, and what I just said, you'll understand what he reads.
Who many times married indigenous women. Coureur du Bois, I got a whole video on that. Very informative video. How they were enslaving American Indians and sending them to plantations to the colonies.
They were enslaving American Indians. American Indians that looked just like them. And they were marrying them.
Where?
We're talking about the Moors. You got to know your history.
Sturdy, bold, energetic men who fought and worked their way overland and down the river through the endless desert wilderness peopled with dangerous savages. They came along without family, since none but men could endure the fatigues and hardships of this arduous journey. Here they
this is crazy because see now there were women already here, but their women couldn't deal with this quote unquote endless desert wilderness. They didn't know nothing about this land. The people who helped the Moors, the Buffalo Soldiers, they were all Moors. The people who helped do what they did, helped these Europeans who got together with them, brought them over here in the first place in 1492, had been traveling. Listen, our history is not told correctly. Y'all gotta learn this shit.
Languished away in single blessedness and melancholy, bachelorhood as long as they could stand. It save a few led astray by the dusky charm of some forest maiden. At last, Forest Lewis took mercy on their loneliness and shipped an experiment, several cargoes of females.
Check this out. This is deep. So, good King Louis and he was not a good king. Y'all need to learn who King Louis and what he was. Took mercy on their loneliness because they was complaining. They man, we finna leave. Ain't no goddamn women over. We finna go. The Moors wasn't trying to do the homosexual thing. They wanted some women and they wanted some children. They were lonely. So, look.
And just here comes in the bar sinister. For these females were Magdalenes. Listen to this. Prisoners from the royal prison of La Salette.
I want to go back. Hold on, this is 3:45:30. I want to go back, y'all. I want to go back. Hold on. Wait. I'm not going to go too far, I promise. This is the shit right here for me. This did it for me. Y'all say it was what that for you or this for you. This was the shit. This was it for me. This did it for me. I'm going to go right here. Listen.
Cargoes of females. And just here comes in the bar sinister.
Several cargoes of females, comma, and just Here comes in the bar sinister. Now, you know the word sinister. You understand that English language. You know, when other people from other countries come here and say that the English language is the hardest language they've ever tried to learn, they speak multiple languages. It's because the English language is just fucked up. It is really, and it's full of curses. Oh, these people had no idea what they were doing when they created this language. And unfortunately, it is the only one that I know. I am challenging myself to learn other languages. So I'm charging myself right here, right now, in front of y'all to do that. I'm also going to finish my book. I'm challenging myself to do that.
For these females were Magdalenes.
Magdalenes. Now, where is that word, that Magdalene? Where have you heard that word before? The Magdalenes, the Medici, the Magdalenes. Where have you heard that before? This is not our people. Of course, Mary Magdalene wasn't one of us. And neither was Jesus. Y'all better figure this out.
Listen to this. Prisoners from the royal prison of La Salpêtrière. Such were the first women of Louisiana. Who's the Magdalenes?
First women. However, you see how the newspaper is all jacked up because there were the maiden savages. They were already there, but they wanted women of a different hue or status in their culture, the culture they brought here to us. I'm back into the esoteric. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Come through, ancestors. You need to know who you are, first of all, before you can know thyself, before you can empower yourself. Period.
Rich women, right? They're sending them to the Courier de Boys because they were lonely. The Magdalenes. Such were the first women of Louisiana, the first women of European descent.
Prisoners.
Whose morals, the less said, the better. For as Governor Cadillac declared to the parish priest when he proposed the purification of the colony by shipping these home.
the governor Cadillac, they named the car after this person. The governor Cadillac declared to he's probably a Moor, and they named the car after him. Y'all don't understand what's happening here. The governor Cadillac declared to the parish priest. See, this is state and government. State and church, and they've been constantly fighting the whole time. He declared to the parish priest when he proposed the purification of the colony by shipping these home, send these bitches back, because they ain't no good. They is some nasty. I'm sorry. Here we go.
Away all the loose females. There will be no women left here at all.
Loose females.
This will not suit the views of the king or the inclinations of the people. However, for want of better wives, the colonists welcomed these with open arms. But although these satisfied them, they did not, by any means, satisfy the directors of the Louisiana Company. Yes, the Louisiana Company.
Wonder why.
They proved a failure in one of the most important needs of the new country: children.
Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Come forth. Dr. Welsing told us what she told us, not by her own ideology, but by the study of historical behavior, historical social behavior. And everybody wants to have children. Everybody wants their children. Everybody wants to carry on their bloodline. Personally, I feel bad for people having children today. Because the devourer is about and it's mad. Because its time is up. And the first thing it's coming for are your children. Mine are prepared for the most part. How about yours?
These women couldn't give them children. To supply the deficiency of a cargo of girls known in Louisiana history as the filles de la cassette.
Let me stop, because I said something a while ago, but I didn't continue the thought. And I need to let you know something. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said that these people were terrified because uh, uh, they were afraid they were going to get bred, out of existence. They're terrified, and that within so many years, she gave a very conservative number. Lately, more people are, especially some of these Yale and Harvard college studies, they looked into that and decided it's going to be a lot sooner than that. Could be as soon as 25 years. Some say 50. That means that in some of y'all's lifetimes ain't going to be no more white people. Now, they're agreeing to that. And so you have these white supremacists. I ain't mad. If you want to stay white, stay white. Your problem is that you can't make babies. That's the problem, these ladies. And it's not the women's fault, it's the men. This is why white women are going to Africa and all over the place, and looking for them in the HBCUs, the way that Obama's mother did, and found that Kenyan man. And if you look on your, see that Kenyan blood is very powerful and strong. It's the fastest. It's the bionic man and woman. If you look on your internet, you will find that there are white women from all over the world in Europe, and they're all going to Kenya and finding those, even at one point, just the native Kenyan, they didn't care who they fucked, and got pregnant and then came back to the United States and raised their children because the men were not producing viable seed. I go back to Monroe, Louisiana, and Poverty Point, and all over the indigenous world where the women were witches and cast spells on the slave masters, rendering their seed impotent. They were going to kill them one way or another because of what they had done to us, raping the women and the men and the children. They were raping the little boys. These people were foul. Now, I know Mitch McConnell doesn't want this heard. So those women, they cursed them. Right now in Poverty Point, Louisiana, white people cannot grow food. Monroe, also known as Monroe, Louisiana, where that HBCU is. They can't control the land. They can't do anything to you physically. They will control your mind. This is warfare. This is why they cut my mic off in the last few videos. I didn't realize what they had done. Let's go on.
Or casket girls were sent over by way of experiment.
The casket girls.
Poor,
now, let's
ugly,
stop.
But virtuous.
Wait, let's stop. To supply the deficiency, a cargo of girls known in Louisiana history, known in Louisiana, read this, known in Louisiana history, they already knew about. The people of Louisiana, the history, they already knew about these cargo, these girls. So they didn't come from France or Spain. These women were known. They were the filles de la cassette. I'm sorry, filles de la cassette, or casket girls.
The experiment proved a signal success.
So they said that these girls were poor. They didn't have anything. They didn't have a dowry. And they were only poor because they were made to be poor. They were ugly, so they said. But what's that word right there? Does anybody know it? But what? Virtuous. And they had enslaved them. They had sexualized them. They had made them into prostitutes because that was the only thing they would do. They would give, that's the only way that they would allow these women to eat. If you don't do like we say, you don't get no food, you don't get no water, you just get left to the side. So they subjugated these beautiful, ugly, so they said, ugly. They've been calling melanated people ugly for so long. Let me see how ugly they really are. But they're virtuous, right? Keep going.
Girls commanded fancy prices and supplied the needed want. So now what did they start doing? Because they had the,
Wait. Now, if this was a signal success, some mass, wonderful success, they was like, yeah, they was happy with the cargo of Field de la Cassette. The ugly poor, ugly uh, women they shipped in. They didn't say from where. The experiment proved a success. Why? The girls commanded fancy prices and supplied the needed want. In other words, these men was like, yeah, we like these women. Shit, they was really, man, they was like, Clem, no, I want her, because they were beautiful and melanated, but they were prostitutes. Stop your judgments. You can't have unity with judgments. Stop your judgments, people.
They were the ones in control because now they had the pleasure to give the men. They started what? They started becoming pimps themselves. They started doing fancy prices. What do we know about Louisiana and the Chatels and the Bordeaux? Huh?
So they weren't pimping; they were pimping themselves. It's like, yeah, I know, I know my worth. I know my value, baby. I got high value. What you gonna give me? That's why I love and I call right now this ancestor, Lynette Bailey. Uh, ain't read you did not know your worth back then. I wish you had, beloved. You commanded a very high price and you got it too with your virtuous self. Go ahead. Peace.
Understand? This has an origin. All this stuff has an origin. In the infancy of the colony, Louisiana felt proud indeed if he could only trace his origin back to these casket instead of the two of the correction girls. All right, so a lot of people don't want to trace back to these supposed, what were they, what do you call them, unfortunate.
You see what
women.
he said?
It was some half a century after this that the first Acadian found.
You see what he said? He said they would count themselves lucky if they could have a descendants that trace back to these casket girls, these filles de la cassette. Beautiful, melanated. They had to. They didn't tell you. See, that's the thing in the news. They didn't tell you where they got them from. They didn't tell you that part. They just say they shipped them in. You need to know. And they were very popular. Yes, the indigenous.
Way to Louisiana, all right, Acadians. He came to us persecuted, wanderer, without country or home. He was so hospitably received, fed, clothed, and lodged that well pleased with the country and the people. He pitched his tents upon the soil of Louisiana and peopled his western prairies. All right, pitched his tents, teepees. He pitched his tents.
He was an Acadian. Your Acadians were black
were
people.
sturdy, stalwart, built race, shown in their disposition and every feature their northern or Norman descent. They were bony, suony, with high cheekbones, and their complexion swarthy, and bronze. All their features bearing so close a resemblance to those of our aborigines. Listen to this, all right? They were swarthy complexion, bronze people. The Acadians, French Acadians, right? And they had a so close resemblance to those of our aborigines as to give rise to a somewhat wild theory that the climate of America had an Indianizing effect on Europeans.
So basically, these Moors who were already swarthy mixed with the indigenous swarthy. And so, because those Moors were Europeans, no one wanted to consider their color. They hated the Moors anyway. And the Moors thought they were loved. And so they partnered with these Europeans. But yet they were the Europeans. So if you go farther back in history, when the Moors did rule Spain and Europe, these people came in and the Moors have been teaching them ever since, helping them, providing them with everything that they need to survive and thrive and reach the great heights and pinnacle of what is considered society. And these Europeans have taken that and are attempting to destroy not only the Moors, but the earth itself. Almost done, folks.
What? in that a few centuries of it would convert us in complexion and disposition into Sioux and Modocs.
Thank you for coming forth, Dr. Frances Chris Welsing. As she said, they were afraid that they would become, the white race would be eradicated. Even the newspapers talked about it in the 1800s. This is a newspaper from the Library of Congress, uh, uh, saved copy.
True explanation of the undoubted Indian physiognomy is perhaps more easily and naturally explained in the frequency in the earlier days, listen to this, of Choctaw wives, a custom so prevalent in the colony at one time as to beget a schism between church and state. On this point, the parish priest coolly suggested that if a man could get no better wife than an Indian squaw, he had better remain single altogether.
So these sisters was taken over. I'm a proud member of the Choctaw on my father's side. All of the indigenous melanated need to quickly go and claim your heritage. Those of us in Baptiste is one. There are lots of them, and this video does have some of the names and where you can find your names. And I gotta tell you, the Thibodeaux, and I know lots of them. The Fontenot, the Thibodeaux, the oh man, there's so many of them, and they are all listed, and a lot of them listed as black, but their great great grandparents were white, and that's not because you were enslaved. They lie, because this is in the 1400s, prior to slavery. They kept very good records. And I need to check into the ones that they have updated, because the I believe it's the Mormon Church is updating all of the records in Louisiana. Peace to this knowledge. Knowledge is power, but it's only powerful if you use it. You have a tool. As I've said before, it goes higher than and greater than you would even can't even imagine. You people have a my people, our people. We have a lightsaber, and it's sitting on the coffee table like a bookend. Go to work. Know thyself.
If you can't get a good woman like a Choctaw Indian woman,
he's got this confused. He's got this confused right now, but he's just excited, and he's really showing us a lot of good stuff. Listen,
Indian woman, you better stay single. All right, deep stuff here we're learning. Let's go back again. Acadians are what? Swarty complexion, bronzed. All right, just in case you don't know what Swarty means, it's dark complexion. All right, and they saying that they resemble Indians.
They look like the Aborigines.
We know a lot of the Acadians were mixing with the indigenous people for years up in Nova Scotia.
The French Moors.
Points that they were saying in 50
Spain
years,
and France.
Tell them apart, remember?
They're together.
And remember the Indians up there were Swarty. Now they're saying that they're also Swarty and they look like Indians too, because not only did they do that in Nova Scotia, but when they were up there in Louisiana and other parts, they were marrying indigenous women. All right. Now, this is what I've been trying to explain to everybody. So you only got, let's say, you got only that history of the Choctaw grandma, right? Who did she marry? I'll wait.
Probably
Was it always an Indian man? Was it always a white slave master?
Nope.
No, a lot of the times it was actual black French people. French people who loved each other. They loved each other. It was both Negro, so-called Negro, black, so-called black people coming together, right? With time, you only remember one side because you assume the other side was white. I'm trying to talk real stuff right here to hope you
Yep.
nobody's getting hurt and nobody's like feeling like I'm trying to like
Now
take
he's
the
talking
Indian
to the,
away.
let me tell you something. Now he's talking to the indigenous people. What he's about to say, he's talking to not the indigenous people, but the people on the reservations, because these people are wanting to, like everybody else, have a European tie, and they like to have that European tie. They have been indoctrinated, just like that we have. HBCUs were an indoctrination uh, uh, scheme to disinform and re-educate away from the truth. That is why it's called his story.
I'm just trying to show you another possible ancestry genealogy in a lot of you. Not all of you, a lot of you. All right? So this is deep right here. Oh no! And now they're saying it has to be the weather. Oh, mate, the weather makes Europeans black in America. America has an Indianizing effect. What does that mean? They're straight up telling you that Indians are.
Yeah, they've been here for 400 years, and this is blonde hair and blue eyes.
Are black. They're straight up telling you without telling you the Indians are black. Indianizing meaning they're being colored. They're becoming more colored. They're somehow swarthy in America, right? They're getting swarthier in America. All right? And again, they were mixing with Choctaw wives. You better get a Choctaw wife if, if you want a good woman. If not, you better stay single altogether. The Cajun was a prolific as his Canadian cousin. In 1765-66, some of 866 Acadians arrived here. In 1788, a few more came, making altogether perhaps 1,000, who today, after the lapse of less than a century, number at least 40,000, covering the whole western portion of the state and extending even to the Red and Mississippi. All right? We was all king. We was all king. Well, maybe of the same complexions, but not all
We'll go back
consumer of lives. The provinces poured yearly into it thousands of 30 hardworking, ambitious men and women, only to be consumed by this monster. In the first few years of Louisiana, the decrease of the population was quite alarming. The census of 1721 showed that of the 7,020 colonists who had come over to this country and settled here, only 5,420 were left. Louisiana was a siege into which emigration was ever pouring without filling up the country. In 1731, the white population, the Hydra, was still stationary.
See?
And so it's not growing. Listen.
Because they can't have children. We cursed the seed. They cursed the seed of this demon because of what they were doing to us. We would not allow that seed to continue. You really don't know the power that we have. If you only knew. The witches of Salem were not white, as you've been told. They were the indigenous, the spell speakers. So they gave us masks to put on our face with spikes in the tongue so that we couldn't speak spells, but we could cook for them, be slaves, and do whatever they needed us to do. Yeah. So they had to take over our minds. And they used all mechanisms of every kind, because without us, they would die.
White people not growing, right? And in 1745, 40 years after the first establishment of the colony, the white population amounted to only half of the number of persons who had established themselves here. And were all these even white? Like pale complexion? Mm-hmm. White was a status. Mm-hmm. So they're even admitting that even the white was really low, it never grew.
You see, and by this time, white is a status. See, we're talking in 1731. By now, white is a status. I don't know what they're teaching you in school, but in 1731, white was a status. So there was a problem. And they wanted the white population to overtake. But the Moors were here. And they were not with those loose women that they brought over from Europe, those ladies, they didn't want them. They were divisive. They were awful, and they were white. Now, I'm just saying, they brought them from over there. King Louis sent some of the imprisoned white women that were already dominating France. See, they had already started in Europe. They did it in Ireland. They did it everywhere. They did it in Greece. They did it everywhere. Yes. And we integrated with them. Not just in America. Integration ain't that new. No, no, no. It's not a brand new baby. Integration is old. Y'all not learning.
Again, these old swarthy people in Louisiana. It says here the Spanish settlers of Louisiana were for the most part brought over by the government, fed, supported, and cared for at the government's expense, and established in various posts throughout the state. As the Romans of old established the colonies in a conquered country. Listen to this. This is how the Romans conquered and colonized. They didn't do it with their own people. Pay attention. This is what they're going to say.
These are Spanish settlers. The settlers were the ones who came in, the Romans, and took over Spain, took it from the Moors. Remember, the Moors ruled Spain for 700 to 900 years. And then, but they had, who had it before that 700 to 900 years? You see, they don't talk about that. They just tell you that the Moors ruled it. But prior to that, it was the indigenous. Keep listening.
Romans of old established the colonies in a conquered country to assure its fidelity. The colonies were from the Canary Islands, just then suffering under blight, and whose inhabitants were starving to death, and were called by the Creoles Islanders, the Creole corruption of Isleños, or islanders. The Spanish colonies were at Tours, Aux, Bouze, St. Bernard, Galveston, Baton Rouge, Valenzuela, La Forge, and New Iberia, right? Iberia, where the Moors were. Around all these localities, some of their descendants still linger, but at the Terux books alone do they preserve their individuality, their race, language, and customs in the midst of a different race. I just want to say that this, again, newspapers from the 1800s.
They still spoke their language.
Along with the Spaniards. Now listen to this. This is major drop coming.
Yeah, they're messing with his
Along
video
with the
too.
Spaniards also came quite a number of gypsies who established themselves in the western portion of the state.
Gypsies. So there's some words that people have changed to mean something else, but not really. When you look at how the original people of Portuguese were Black, and they shipped them people everywhere too. The original people of the Portuguese were enslaved. Portugal. And Europeans, British, or I don't know if it's British or Spanish, but I believe it was the Spanish because they speak Spanish. Spain took over after they colonized Spain from the Moors. Then they began to take over places like Portugal, and they did the same thing. They tried to lighten them up. Didn't really work. They just kept getting darker and darker. So now they just have, people come over there and say they're 2 generations and they're trying to keep them white, but that Portugal blood is beautiful. And so they can't help themselves. That the indigenous Portugal blood. So they can't help themselves. So they have no choice but to honor the goddess mother. Anyway, I digress. I'm trying to get to a point here. They did that in Portugal. They did it in many places. The point I'm making here is as soon as you figure out what your heritage is, you will understand. When people in the US call themselves Geechee, You must understand that term originated with the Portuguese, Geechee, Portuguese. So when the Gullah Geechee say they are the Gullah Geechee, you have no idea when they tell you that you're from Africa that you may truly be a specific people who ran here from Portugal. And this is how you were able to do the sugar and keep your culture and the other things you do because you had a special power that they could not take away. Uh, there's also the gypsies, and that's what took me on to the Geechee. The gypsies. That sounds a lot like Egyptians who were here already, these wandering tribes of people who wandered all over the Americas and in North America. There's old movies about the gypsies in North America, and they always portrayed them as white, but they were not. And they were feared because of the tarot and the uh, oh the magic and the they had a great sense of telepathy, a great sense of even they say telekinesis. They could speak curses. The gypsies. There's some scary movies about gypsies too. It's because they demonize quote unquote us. That word you should learn is one you should not fear. It's one you should use. Okay, and you have the power to do that. You must fight back against human rights uh, violators by any means necessary.
Not far from Natchitoches is a race so dark and swarthy. I gypsies, a race so dark and swarthy that in the eyes of the Negroes, they were always regarded as some strange free Negro race. Gypsies, Negroes, very dark.
So they were always portrayed in the movies as white, remember? There's so much they're not teaching us. The gypsies. And so now you understand why it resonates when I tell you that the gypsies are a improper pronunciation of the word Egyptian. Like eh, when these Africans come over here and tell us their names and you can't pronounce it because you don't understand the language. You go and tell one of those Georgia Hill people or West Virginia Hill people that you're an Egyptian, they're going to say, oh, a gypsy. But you're not taught your truth.
All right. These linger near Natchitoches as late as 1840, but have since disappeared. Where did they all go? Just like the Mayas disappeared, right? Just like these tribes disappeared, you didn't disappear. Amalgamation, assimilation, mixing in.
Stay tuned, because I'm gonna do something on the Mayans, and not only the Mayans, but the Garifuna. Ah,
you are Cajuns, so-called Louisianans, African Americans. It's not just Indians, but they did. A lot of these people, most likely these gypsies, mixed in with indigenous women as well, who were also dark-skinned, dark complexion.
Everybody was already here. Again, even the Egyptians had already come here. And that's why they're now trying to hurry up and disclose as much as they can the fact that the Smithsonian has been hiding Egyptian artifacts and that there's still some in the Grand Canyon and they can't get down there to even get them because of how it's so treacherous. People have died trying to go in. Y'all better wake up.
These were, Negro. We already got this drop in my Swarthy Europe videos from the book Ancient and Modern Britons, letting us know that the gypsies were swarthy. They were very dark. Who are the real gypsies? Egyptian. They can't even understand how a Hindu made it all the way to Europe when there is no migration path or history. They don't understand. because they were coming from the real Egypt, America,
Yeah.
Egyptian. Egyptian. They called them red, like red Indians. They called Egyptians in Britain like red Indians, copper colored. Now we got Egyptians, right, coming from Spain after hundreds of years, right? Like they've been in Spain. And I'm not saying all of them are Indians, and that's not what I'm even. I'm just telling you to think.
He doesn't know all the truth, but he's putting it together very well. And I can say this: I've done some research on my own, and if you go and search out the information, you will find that there were American. When I say American, I'm talking about of the Americas, North, Central, and South. But excuse me, there were American artifacts found in Egypt, and they had been there in antiquity. Also, there is a rendition of, I believe it's, I want to say Teotihuacan, but it may not be, one of the South American or Central American quote unquote deities, which was a god, which was us. They thought we were gods because we were powerful, mind, body, soul, spirit, and we were, when I say powerful, we could do things, we were literally superheroes. Um, and so they thought we were gods, and we just accepted that role for them. So this is why you have the stories of the gods. At any rate, I digress. That's for a later video. Uh, so there's a rendition of one of the American deities, and I'm saying deities even though I don't care for that word, but I'm saying that for the sake of the people who are listening who may not be familiar with any of this history. It will help you tie in. But when I say that deity is not the word to use, it's a bastardized word. So I'm going on. They found one of those in ancient Kemet as well, a rendition of it's in stone. Now, I can't remember exactly which one. I'd have to research it for you and remind me if you care to know. And if you do, I will look it up for you and I will do a show on it, a discussion on it. But yes, so Teotihuacan is one of ours as well. And you need to know that the history they've given you about the Aztecs and the Mayans is complete and utter bullshit. All right.
Wider, right? Because the book Ancient Modern Brains let us throw a major drop on the Egyptians and who the Romani. Shout out to Drop Nation, who the Romani, who the real Egyptians, right? Gypsies, right? Gypsies, Egyptians, gypsies.
Who's Romani, I wonder?
All right. They were very dark and swarthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like there's different strange free Negro race. All right. So they're still there. They didn't disappear, although their former settlement can still be traced in the liquid black eyes, the dark complexion, the somewhat idle habits of their descendants. The only other Spaniards in Louisiana, a few persons with Mexican descent on the uncertain Texas border, the office holders, a respectable class of good Castilian descent, who, living at New Orleans, intermarried with the Creole families until they lost the...
Wait, he lost over that. They talking about Texas. They talking about my people. They talking about my daddy folk in Louisiana, and they talking about some of my folk that's here in Texas. All right. And I have not quite gotten that far down the chain to see of the people that are here in Houston that I'm related to. There are quite a few. We're everywhere, and we really need to research our information and connect, get together, The thing that they fear the most is our unity. Get together and patch the truth of our story together so that we can be more powerful, so that we can be empowered by knowing ourselves. So he glossed over that part about Texas. And I can say this. Many of the indigenous from Louisiana are in Texas. I mentioned a few in other videos, the citizens uh, and the Jubert. There are a few others of my kin who are in Texas. And you really should find out. There's some young Shilohs here in Texas, in Houston, and all over the place in California, lots of other places. So the Shilohs, we need to get together. I think we have a crest of arms, if I'm not mistaken. They have whitewashed everything. The Shiloh name goes back to the 1100. 1100. And that's only because I'm doing it by the correct spelling. It doesn't matter. The name spelling changes not only for us, but for everyone. Some done on purpose, some done out of ignorance. The United States military messed up my last name. See, because they owned my father. I'm going to end this video pretty soon. It's getting long. I just have so much information to teach the people. Each one teach one, as they say.
Peculiarities, save their names and some needy Catalans. The Dagos of these days who have since melted away into other races. They have melted, they have disappeared too. What did they become? Let me guess. Maybe, possibly, eventually, African Americans too, or mixing with Indians, becoming so-called colored mulattoes, Creoles. You know what I'm saying? The other
Black.
Spanish residents, never very numerous, left for Havana,
The
with
black.
the long banner of Castile and Aragon no longer
It's the only thing that ties us together. Nobody wants to be black. But how can you deny that your skin is dark? It's darker. You are the black. You are of the race of the blacks. And we are the indigenous people of the world. Afro descendants. Whether it's from Africa or Afrite in here in Greece or Great Britain, the queens that were Great Britain that were black, African, Afro, whatever, wherever, you black. Like Grandmaster Jay say, blackly, black, 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 black. Since you don't like the word. You've been taught to hate the black. Black magic. Yourself. Carbon. The melanated. The black. Stop hating it. Learn to love it. And one day, you'll be free. I'm free now. But it's a journey because you've been conditioned to hate the black.
All right. Swarthy Acadians, swarthy gypsies. Very dark, like a whole other Negro race, even by their own Negroes saying that. All right. Again, Library of Congress, the New Orleans Daily Democrat from 1877, from March 4th, 1877. Go ahead and look for it if you'd like to get the whole drop.
All right, I'm going to end this video here. I thank you for tuning in. This is Siri-lily. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to hit that all notifications bell. There's no music here because all of the social media are dinging people behind music, not letting your information go up. So somebody send me some good uncopyrighted music. I'm going to end it with one that I love very much. Should have probably started it with it. I might try to figure out if I can get it edited in. I don't do editing. Anybody want to help me with that? That is perfectly okay. Did this the wrong one? Y'all bear with me. Y'all, I am a little bit tired. And her name is Easy Stacks. Easy Stacks. My favorite joint by her so far, but she has a couple. I just need to check them out more. She was introduced to me by my girl, Robin Allen, Lady of Rage. Shout out, Lady of Rage. Shout out for everything that you're doing. Take it to the top, baby girl, and stay true to yourself. I love you for that, the beauty that I met in you. And tell your story, write your book. I'm writing one too. I'm not mad at you, baby girl. You got to tell the truth. You got to tell the truth. Shit, I'm hurting, ain't no need to pretend. I gave my all, shit, I don't need it back. Gave you my last, I felt you needed that. I built it up to see it all collapse. We ain't the same shit, I've been moving different. Conflicted interest, feel like something missing. I chase a bag, I don't believe in wishes. My mama scared, cause she don't think that I am. She see my homies getting caught up in that jam. Don't love myself, so shit, she know how I am. Ain't see a meal, but I just pray that I can. I'm smoking blunts, trying to suppress the shit. Don't ask so much, I've been finessing what he blessed me with. I wash my hands with all that shit and did an extra rinse. My heart protected with this vest, this bitch is extra thick. Just got an extra clip, nigga say he gon' kill me, we gon' die together. We cut from the same cloth, but I'm a different texture. I know this life been kinda bad, but it been getting better. They gave my nigga B's and 60, I was hoping love, so he considered it a blessing. So many losses, I just pray for a win. No sympathy, cause I do it again. I got myself, so ain't no need to be free. Shit, I'm hurting, ain't no need to pretend. I gave my all, shit, I don't need it back. Gave you my last, I felt you needed that. I built it up to see it all collapse. We ain't the same shit, I've been moving different. Conflicted interest, feel like something missing. I chase a bag, I don't believe in wishes. My mama scared, cause she don't think that I am. She see my homies getting caught up in that jam. Don't love myself, so shit, she know how I am. Ain't see a meal, but I just pray that I can. I'm smoking blunts, trying to suppress the shit. Don't ask so much, I've been finessing what he blessed me with. I wash my hands with all that shit and did an extra rinse. My heart protected with this vest, this bitch is extra thick. Just got an extra clip, nigga say he gon' kill me, we gon' die together. We cut from the same cloth, but I'm a different